I'ma be outside. I'ma be outside.
And before we continue, I would like to recognize that I and many of the folks today are coming to you from the land of the Coast Salish, specifically the Duwamish, whose people past and present are still here. And we honor with gratitude the land and the people. Thank you so much. So today, as I mentioned, we are here to celebrate Black women in this monthly virtual series highlighting state parks, community, and the awesome things that Black folks are doing all over Washington state. And yes, it is Sundae, like ice cream. So what flavors of ice cream have you been enjoying? You know, the summer is slowly coming to an end and the fall is beginning, but ice cream is still on my menu, cutting back on the dairy. So I have some non-dairy coconut milk, ice cream, Cherry Garcia. It's pretty good, the non-dairy Cherry Garcia. If you're into cherries and you like that flavor, check it out. That's what I'm having. Drop in the comment box what your favorite flavors are. Would like to hear what you're having on this Sundays Outside episode. Now, Sundays Outside is a partnership between Washington State Parks and Washington State Parks Folks and Traditional Arts Program, which is an amazing program, and Golden Bricks Events, with additional support from our sponsors, including the Washington State Parks Foundation, the Wilderness Society, Washington Trails Association, the National Endowment for Northwest, National Parks Conservation Association, shout out to them, I'm a volunteer there, REI, the Trust for Public Lands, and the Friends of Seattle Waterfront. So go ahead, subscribe here to our YouTube. Again, I'm Merri, and as your MC today, I wanted to give you give a special shout out to everybody who just are finishing up their outdoor refuge experience. The Refuge Outdoor Festival Canton happened this weekend, right? So, you know, this is a wonderful event. It's a camping experience geared toward